Hello and welcome to a winter day in Maryland. It's February. It's going to hit 60 degrees today, but it's going to snow tomorrow. So we take advantage of outside time when we can, and the way we're going to take advantage of it is this. Yeah, I know. That's a lot of blue tape. So one thing I've been trying to pay attention to with this car as we're kind of redoing flares and other stuff with it in the off season is aerodynamics. We can take advantage of some rules changes, we can redo some of the body work we've done, and this car's never going to be perfectly aerodynamic. The underside of it is a mess. There's no trunk floor. We've got restrictions within the class, but if we can make little improvements, we're going to do that. And also, if those improvements can have other benefits, we should do that. So one of the things that I've looked at doing now that we've kind of did some cooling system upgrades and everything else is we're going to improve some ducting to the radiator, but we're also going to try to get hot air out. So we've got some hood vents that we're going to install from Trackspec Motorsports. Not a sponsored ad, they just have cool stuff. We're going to get those hood vents installed, and those are going to help, one, with under hood temps when we're sitting in grid, because, autocross, you run really hard for, 60, 70 seconds, and then you park it. Then you sit for a bit in grid, and we want to get heat out. If we don't have to take the hood off to do that, that's helpful. There is potentially a side benefit of getting some of the air out from underneath the hood while we're running for a slight aerodynamic increase. I mean, we're not going to set the world on fire there, but every little bit helps, right? So let's take a look at what we've got. I absolutely owe the Miata an apology for turning it into a workbench. We'll remedy that soon, but here are the vents that I got from Trackspec Motorsports. Now, this is the center vent. This is going to be the main outlet for the radiator. And then these two side vents here are going to help get heat out from under the hood. And let me turn around, show you the hood, and let you see what I'm talking about. Here's the hood with my templates laid out. Now you can see we've got our center vent here, and we've got our two secondary vents for getting heat out from under the hood back there. Now, you can also see I've got a lot of tape, and I've even marked some areas where I thought some vents were going to go. I played around a lot with vent placement, talked to a lot of people, came up with a lot of ideas, and the long story short is this is probably the most beneficial for my car, my situation. Take everything with a grain of salt. So this vent sits very nicely between the radiator, which is right about here, and the intake for the car, which is right about there. So that works great. That a lot of hot air off the radiator coming out. We're not going to duct it right now, but we may duct it in the future. But for now, we're just going to let heat find its way out. These auxiliary vents here, those are a little harder to place. Originally, I thought I'd have them kind of right here and make just one big radiator vent. But a lot of people suggested moving them out to these back corners. And basically, if you think about a boat, which is a decent way to think about aero sometimes, and how water reacts. The water's going to hit the front, and it's going to V off. Well, what we're talking about here is air pressure, high pressure to low pressure. And just like a cowl induction hood, it has a pressure differential at the base of the windshield and lets air come in. If we sit on these outside edges in this front nose, we're actually encouraging air to come out when we're driving. So that's the aerodynamic theory. There are way smarter people about it. I'll link to everything down below, but that's where we're at. Kind of figured out that's what's going to work, and now we're going to cut some holes in this expensive hood. So hang out, let's ruin something. Point of no return. Here we go. Well, there's a hole in the hood. Let's make some more. It's certainly dramatic. Let's see how well the vent fits initially. I knew this was coming. We're gonna have to put a slight bend in this vent to make it sit flat and flush, because I don't necessarily want to cut out this center section. I could, but I think it's gonna add a good bit of strength. Also just kind of lining things up, looking around. I think our template's pretty good. We might have to do a little cleanup, but I think that's good for now. I'm going to put a little bend in this. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but put a little bend to flex in it and we'll see what happens. All right, the cool part is I could actually bend a lot of this just using my hands. I did try to kind of break it over some metal I had in a vise down the middle, but I couldn't get like the crisp line. But this stuff is actually pretty flexible aluminum, so I'm going to start putting this in with some Clecos, make sure that it all lays flat, get my holes drilled, and then this one will be done and we can move to the other ones. But it's already looking pretty dope, so hell yeah. All right, hole is cut. Things are drilled. I put it in place. It looks awesome. You're gonna have to wait to see till it's all riveted in. I will say I made little notches here for part of the structure, and they're really close to where the rivets are supposed to go, and those are important rivets to me, so I might back them with something, maybe a stainless steel washer or something. So we'll figure it out, but let's cut some more holes. This one okay? Can't get much worse, right? So, something I forgot about, I glued these foam blocks to the hood so I'd have something to set the hood down on when I didn't have to put a blanket or anything. Well, I guess they're right there, so we'll trim that out of there and keep moving along. So the other thing we have to contend with is a little bit of structure that's kind of in the way, so I'm just going to grind that out real fast, just a little bit. We should be able to get that vent sitting in there. All right, I guess now we peel some tape, clean up this hood, and rivet everything together. So before I rivet them in, here's the hood cleaned up a little bit with all the dust off of it. It actually worked pretty well. The paint seemed to turn out okay. A little bit of my vinyl came off there, but that all gets covered. If you care more about your hood, you do a better job protecting the paint. The paint here is rough anyway. I mean, there's all sorts of bad spots. It's a race car, so I wasn't too worried about it, but got the holes cut, so we're going to go ahead and rivet in those louvers. I keep calling them vents. We're going to rivet in those louvers, and you'll see it in just a second. I guess YouTube snap. So that's kind of fun. I finally opened the instructions after I cut all the holes, and there's Brian Hobaugh's car. He runs in Cam T now, but that used to be a CP car, and a lot of stuff that was done to that car I blatantly stole, or it was inspired. Let's go inspired by. That sounds better. But yeah, no, a lot of that car I used on that one over there. Well, it's behind the green thing, but there's a Camaro there somewhere. All right, so there they are, all installed. Got the center vent in. It fits pretty good. There's a couple spots just because the hood's a weird shape, but overall, I think it works out really well. The side vents look cool where they're at. So let's throw this on the dirty and torn apart car and see what it looks like. All right, here we are on the car. The rest of the car is dirty, but the hood's at least kind of clean. And yeah, I'm pretty stoked with how this turned out. These work nicely together. This is in just the perfect spot and kind of goes away, and it's cool, like being able to kind of see the radiator and stuff down in there. The positioning is pretty much perfect. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked on that. So that's one job done. We can check off this box. I want to revisit the front sway bar real fast. I made some compromise with the sway bar arms, and I realized I'm an idiot and I didn't have to do that. So let me get set up and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so we're back under the car. If you saw my previous video about installing the sway bar from Speedway Motors, one thing I did is I took the arms and I flipped them. This arm is supposed to be on the driver's side. Here is the arm that's supposed to be on the passenger side, and I flipped them because basically I was running into interference right here. And then somebody said to me, "Aren't you in prepared? Can't you cut the chassis out of the way for suspension clearance?" And Yeah, no, I totally can. So let me get this arm off. Let me put the correct arm on, show you the interference issue again, and then we'll trim some stuff up. All right, so what I've done is I removed the spring just so we can move things up and down a little bit better, and I've compressed everything. I mean, we're basically at full compression here, and we're just getting a little bit of interference, but this is also kind of sitting out pretty far. So all I'm gonna do is mark kind of right in here. We're gonna take a little chunk out, and we should be good to go. All right, I pulled the spring out of here so we can get full compression. We're basically all the way. And here's our little notch. Looks like we've got just enough room. We've got clearance on the other side. It'll start to hit the steering box bolts if we go any further, but I think we can clean this up, paint it, and call it good. I also want to say before anybody else does, and you're worried that I've weakened the frame here. I mean, the truth is, we've got a cage member landing in here. This is super thick steel that makes these frame rails. It's double reinforced underneath with the sway bar mounts. I mean, these holes are in the factory, you know, for transport. That's where I can hook things up. Or, I mean, it'll be fine. If I notice the paint cracking or I notice flexing, like, I'll come back and reinforce it, but I don't think a hole here is gonna hurt anything. So maybe I'm wrong. Feel free to say so down below, but I think it's gonna be okay. All right, we are back on the ground. I got the wheels at full lock. I just wanted to check clearance here, and the sway bar armed on the quote-unquote correct way. Everything looks good. The end link angles all look good, so I think we're in good shape here. All right, I had to throw the hood on one more time for another look. I'm pretty stoked about how these louvers turned out. Psyched that I got the sway bar fixed up, so we're getting closer. I mean, it's February now, mid-February. The DC tour is going to be in April, so we got a few more things we got to do. We got to finish out the flares, so we're going to do some more body work on the fronts, and I've got a big piece of insulation to start the rear, so that'll be the next thing you see. We'll get the flares done so we can get them body worked and ready for paint when the weather's appropriate. Other than that, we're just going to chip away at stuff. So thanks for watching. I appreciate any comments or feedback you all have, and yeah, we'll see you on the next one. Cricket. Trying to film, Otto. You help me out a little bit? Hey, Cricket! That's a new dog. That's Cricket. She's crazy. That's the old dog, Otto. He's also crazy. All right. You guys be good. I'm going to go finish up.